Welcome to Power Up with NSA North Texas, a show about finding, hearing, and maximizing valuable insights from some of the world's leading business and lifestyle speakers. Each week, international keynote speaker and National Speakers Association North Texas chapter president Betti sits down with some of the most exciting speakers this side of the globe to hear from these subject matter experts what's making a difference in business today and learn all there is to know about people, profits, and productivity in business from some of the world's best motivators. This is Power Up with NSA North Texas. And now, here's your host, Betti.
Hi everyone, I'm Betti, the host and president of our NSA North Texas chapter. NSA is the National Speakers Association, and it is the premier organization for professional speakers. Our members reach audiences as authors, coaches, consultants, trainers, educators, and motivators, and we do that every day. This show really centers on the opportunity and going to give you the opportunity to hear some of the most important topics that organizations are concerned about today, cutting edge topics, and what are some of the issues and messages that your people in your organizations want to hear about and know and conquer. And our subject matter experts from NSA North Texas are the subject matter experts on those questions. And so I'm so excited today. My guest is Ms. Courtney Ramsey. Hello, Courtney.
Hello.
Welcome to the show. I'm thrilled to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Courtney is a powerhouse in the training arena. She has over 15 years of experience in corporate learning and development and in human resources, and she knows all about changing behaviors, which everybody's doing on a daily basis. Her keynotes and training programs impact business results and inspire audiences every day. Courtney has trained over 20,000 associates in leadership, business management, conflict resolution, effective communication, and operations. She has helped companies like JCPenney and Zales Corporation, and she's helped them save millions of dollars. Speaking personally about Courtney, she is a professional member of our own NSA National Speakers Association North Texas chapter, and she's been the dean of our NSA North Texas Academy for the last few years. And in October, we wanted a more refreshing curriculum and academy, better than any of the other chapters, I'll say. And she and I met, and she has been fantastic. She created an entire curriculum for our National Speakers Association, and she did it phenomenally. And it's been one of the most successful curriculums we've ever had in our chapter. So I know that I've had real time-on experience with Courtney, and she's been fantastic. She creates and facilitates phenomenal programs. And her topic today is quit hitting the snooze on employee retention and engagement. And I love that, quit hitting the snooze. I'm going to find out more from Courtney on that. She teaches easy ways anyone can overcome the snooze habit and have higher engagement and retention. Mm-hmm. So, Ms. Courtney, I'm so happy to have you here today.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
It's great to have you. You have a lot of experience in the corporate world.
I do.
Especially in training and development. How does that set you apart from other speakers?
You know, I think the biggest thing, Betti, is I always look at everything through a trainer's eye. And that means I'm looking for how can I change the behaviors and how can I address the root cause of a problem. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times, for example, I have a current client who came to me and they wanted to completely revise their client experience training. But when I got in there and started digging and asking why things weren't working, I found that training itself, the one they already had created, was actually just fine. The problem was no one was holding the people accountable to that training.
Accountability.
No one was reinforcing it.
Right.
So sometimes it's actually not the training that's a problem. We like to throw training at things and like say, training's going to fix it all. Sometimes the training's not the problem. It's really the accountability measures that are or are not behind it. So I always look at it with that dig deep, ask why eye, and I always focus on changing behaviors versus just talking about the why. You know, we talk about why a lot.
Yeah,
why
exactly.
is something so important?
Exactly.
I talked about how do you actually do it. The how is the most important part for me personally.
So you really get underneath it, and you put a lot of muscle into it, which I just love.
I don't like to just throw training. You can waste a lot of money throwing training at things and just hoping it sticks.
And people's productivity and their time, which is our most important asset these days.
Absolutely.
people, I've noticed throughout my years that a lot of people will go to conferences or training seminars and they're like, this is a waste of time.
I know.
And they're multitasking or they're thinking about something else and they're really not getting anything out of it. And it's not productive for them, and it's very, very bad for a company because they're spending a lot of money.
Well, a lot of those conferences do exactly what we were just talking about. They talk about the why, and you leave super motivated knowing why you should change something, but they don't give you the how.
Exactly.
And that really annoys me personally. I'm always looking for, well, tell me how. How do I do this?
Yeah, just don't leave me hanging.
Yeah,
I love
exactly.
that. Yeah, I hear you. So I love your catchphrase, and I want to know more about this. Quit hitting snooze.
Yes.
Quit hitting snooze. So tell me what that's all about, and I bet there's a story behind there.
You know, there kind of is. I mean, me personally, I say the snooze button exists on more than just alarm clocks, right? We think it's just on our phones, like we have our phone or our old school alarm clock, but really the snooze button is all around us, and it's very seductive. I feel like we hit the snooze button anytime we avoid doing something that we know is really best for us personally. It's best for our family. It's best for our team at work. But we avoid it because it's uncomfortable.
Good point.
Or we avoid it because we're afraid of upsetting other people and having some conflict in our lives. There are just things we keep hitting the snooze button on. So that was never more apparent for me personally than when I worked in corporate America and I was promoted to my first true leadership position. Oh my gosh, Betti. I was so overwhelmed because I was that classic case of the fantastic independent individual contributor, right?
Right.
Who didn't really know how to be a leader, but was put in that position anyway, without the training, without the reinforcement to go into it.
That happens so much today.
It happens every day.
It's frightening. Keep going.
Well,
but
it's annoying, right? Because it shouldn't happen. We should really do better for our people at work. But I was put in this position, and I found myself fighting all these fires. At least that's what I call it. I've heard people say whack-a-mole, right? You know, these things that come up that are important and urgent throughout the day, and you don't put emphasis on the things that matter, that really engage and retain your talent, your people, because you're too busy putting out fires over here, going to meetings, being on conference calls, getting an expense report done. And oh, by the way, you meant to have that tough conversation with your coworker 3 weeks ago, and now you're going on 5 weeks, and it's still an issue, right? Because you're hitting snooze on it.
Lost the effectiveness because you didn't act right away.
Yeah, so that really started, you know, I'm snoozing on things. Like, I really need to prioritize these things. And I started talking to a couple of friends at work about that same thing. I even said the snooze thing, and they all just lit up. Like, oh my God, that's it. I hit snooze on everything. And it wasn't just professional, it was personal too. Like, you hit snooze on going to the gym or changing your diet for the better.
Yes.
There's so many things that snooze analogy works with. And that's when I knew I had something that really resonated with an audience. And I decided to go with that as my kind of umbrella theme, if you will.
I love that because it's very, very relatable and it makes sense. And we hit snooze way too often.
In every aspect of our life.
I love that.
We really do.
So tell me about some of the problems in organizations that you've encountered and some of the problems that you've been able to solve in really penetrating a company, getting in there, getting them off the snooze button.
Right.
How have you helped them?
You know, the thing that we just talked about is the thing that I feel very passionate about trying to help and solve. So it kills me when I see people who are fantastic individual contributors being promoted up without that leadership training. So one aspect is when I go into companies who have those leaders who are they're spinning, they're drowning, they're overwhelmed, and I go in and either through usually a keynote or a training program, I give them some quick skills they can put into place immediately that will really help them further engage their team and be a better leader for their people. And I try to just make it simple. I kind of say, like, I'm the Cliff Notes for a leader, right? I just give you what you need to know right now. Let's focus on that. We can go deeper later, but for right now, here you go. The other time I would go into a client, and the other problem I helped solve is when you have a lot of people and you are doing the right thing for them. You are focusing on giving them the skills they need before they need them.
Yes.
So, for example, I'm talking to a client right now. They have a group of 10 high potential employees. These are like the golden kids of this company. Fairly young, but not all of them. And they want to make sure that when these leadership positions come available, they can actually consider their internal talent, despite the fact they don't technically have leadership experience. They're bringing me in to put together a year-long training program.
I love that. It's proactive.
Yeah,
I
they're
love
being
it. Thinking
proactive.
ahead, being proactive.
Exactly.
Love it.
So we're going to talk about ways, those basic leadership skills, and then I'm going to challenge them to go back into their team and actually put those skills into play. So they do have some experience before they have to do it for a team.
I love that. I love that
Thank
idea.
you.
It's unique, it's innovative, and most importantly, it's proactive.
Yes, and very few companies are on board with that.
So tell me, what's your typical client? Who is your typical client for both your keynotes and your training? As you do a keynote and you move into an organization, you work with them on their training and learning objectives. Who are your typical clients?
You know, it's interesting. Sometimes they're very different and sometimes they're very much the same because I kind of have two unique sides to my business. So I have the keynoting and the training facilitation side, or, you know, for conferences, breakouts, things like that. And those are usually going to be associations that have a leadership aspect. Maybe it's a leadership conference they're bringing people into, and they want to, again, give their people some good leadership skills to take home with them. It also could be a corporate client who comes in, maybe, for example, I have a lot of retail background. I love working with retail leaders who are just out there on the front lines, dealing with clients every day, dealing with their people, putting out those fires, as we said. I totally get retail because of my experience with Pennies and Zales and Neiman's and things like that. So when you have a sales conference, you bring in your store managers, you're bringing in your store leaders. Those are the kind of people that I really love to speak to for the training and the keynoting side. Now, the other side of my business is actually training consulting and development of training, like you talked about with our academy program.
Yes,
right?
Yes, you were fantastic on that.
Thank you.
You were just, it's been the best. I would hold it up against any other of our NSA training programs in the different chapters.
Well, I appreciate that.
It's been fantastic.
I love putting together things that really build upon each
You got
other.
us off our snooze.
Well, there you go.
We were
See? There we
snoozing.
go. We were snoozing on the current program.
Yeah.
So those people will bring me in, and for those business needs, they identify and say, okay, maybe we don't have a client experience program. I need you to build one from scratch. I'm actually doing that for a client right now. Or it's like the one I talked about. You have something, you think it's not working. I'm going to bring you in to analyze why it's not working and help me fix it. So it's a lot of training development side too. And again, that's usually corporations or small businesses that maybe have a training team, but they're small and they are overwhelmed and there's too much workload for them to take on their own.
Yes.
Or what I'm seeing more often, I think we've talked about this before, there's a lot of companies who realize the value of training, but also realize they don't have a need for it 24/7,
So
and they contract it all out.
The outsourcing.
I'm your girl for that.
Perfect, perfect. Have you noticed, are companies doing more training or less training? Are they putting enough emphasis on the training, especially with our younger workforce? Have you noticed a change there?
Personally, you know, you read a lot about millennials and even Gen X, and now, you know, the upcoming generation, Gen Z. I don't think they're putting enough training emphasis for what people really want. When you look at the stats out there, people come to work for corporations that they believe are going to truly develop them and invest in them for their career. And like it or not, people still like that high-touch instructor-led aspect. They really like that. But they also like the just-in-time training. So having your cell phone available and being able to pull something up as you need it. Being able to watch that video that's maybe 3 minutes or less right in the moment. All that's really important too. So I think some companies are doing a fantastic job. Others, unfortunately, it's like marketing. It's one of the first things that gets cut.
Yes, true.
When the budget gets tight.
Yes.
And that's really unfortunate because if you're talking about engagement and retention, as soon as you cut things like that, your employees look at it like, oh, you don't care about me. You don't want me to be successful here. I'm going to go somewhere that does care about me.
Good point. Good point. Okay, so talk to me also about incorporating crowdsourcing with some of your training programs. How do you do that? What is crowdsourcing? Let's talk about that first.
You can Google it and people will tell you 1,000 different things. For me personally, the way I look at it is I like to use my audience and find out what they want to hear so I can customize my content to them. So for example, I did a recent keynote where the first part of the keynote was me talking about some of the most common things people snooze on at work. So we talked about tough conversations. We talked about not being authentic, like wearing a mask at work. We talked about not breaking out the status quo, things like that, you know, where you get stuck in a rut and you're a little too scared to step out of that and do things differently. At the end of that keynote, I used a polling system on their phones to find out from the audience, which one of these do you want to hear more about? Which one do you want to take a deeper dive into?
That's a great idea.
And they got to choose it, and then we started getting into the how. So the first part was more about the why do we do these things? Then we got to do a deeper dive into how. So they got to leave that conference knowing at least 3 strategies they could go back home and implement as soon as they walked into their office door the next day.
I love it. Your approach is so strategic, so detailed, so customized to the client.
Yeah. It's interesting.
You don't get that anymore as much.
Well,
I love what you're doing. It takes
being in
more
this
time.
world.
It's a heck of a lot of work, too.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
You know, this world, a lot of speakers will have a speech, and they might customize part of it, but they're not prepared to customize all of it. I do think I'm a little different in that way.
That's wonderful. So what kind of, we talked about this, you put a lot of effort into it, you do a lot of research, you tailor, you customize, and then talk to me about what you leave the audience with.
I like to, again, going back to what they take away, to me personally, it needs to be something that's more than just theory. This is a how-to. So for example, it might be a conversation starter. It might be a way, like literally, I'm going to give you a sentence and something to say in your first 10 seconds of trying to start having a tough conversation for you to have a better reaction from the person that you're speaking to, and also lay kind of the right foundation. So it might be something as specific as a conversation starter. It might be something that's a tool to use at home, a job aid they can use. A lot of times we get really customized in building a plan of action, especially in breakout sessions. We'll go through and we will take some time to really think through, using the resources in the room and what you learn in that class, what do you need to do as a plan of action so when they go home, there is actually something for them to start implementing in place.
That's right. And you did that with our own NSA North Texas training program.
Absolutely.
In our academy. Boy,
yeah.
at every one of those sessions, we had a plan of action. We knew what people were going to be doing. They knew what they needed to do.
They knew their
were given
homework
the
for sure.
information. It was fantastic.
And everyone's different, so that allows them to really customize it again to their experience and their needs.
And as an example, just this past weekend, we had the NSA National Speakers Association North Texas chapter showcase, speaker showcase, which is like the culmination of the graduation for those speakers. Oh my gosh, the level that we have coming out of the academy is fantastic.
Right.
And yeah, we've got some great people, but a lot of it was because of a great program.
Well, thank you. And they worked really hard. And I do think, we gave them the resources they needed, but more importantly, we told them how to put it into play.
Exactly. I love that. Okay, so you were in corporate America a long time, and I know a lot of your clients are top companies here in the Dallas Metroplex and across the United States. You are no stranger to having tough conversations.
Right.
Talk to me about those tough conversations. What are companies experiencing now in the workplace, and what are some more of the popular topics?
So tough conversations is definitely one of them. I have an actual training class on this. We call it Real Talk for Real Results.
Love it.
I mean, because really, if you want results, you're going to have the tough conversations. And a tough conversation isn't always just about conflict. Sometimes it's like asking for the raise, right? That's still a tough conversation that gets people really riled
That's
up.
a big one out there.
What do I do?
Yeah.
So, giving feedback to an employee, addressing a conflict with a coworker, all those things are so important because really, whether you're an independent contributor or you're a leader of people, it all boils down to your communication and whether or not you're actually communicating well and effectively. So a lot of the most popular topics that I do, I try to build upon. So we might start with talking about communication styles and talking about how to flex those styles for more impact and more influence, right?
It's not all about you. You're looking at the person you're talking to and how to have an effective conversation.
If I can read you better and say, okay, this is how I need to talk to Betti, but this is how I need to talk to Zach, right?
True.
Whatever it might be. And then we build on that. So but now that you know about identifying a communication style, now we can talk about having a tough conversation. Based on that, we're going to build on. Now we can talk about how to delegate more. Now we can talk about how to give feedback more. So yes, I mean, when it comes down to it, it all boils down to conversations. And I would say at least, depending on the study you look at, 90% of leaders of people avoid tough conversations.
Oh yeah.
It's just, we all hate
totally
it. It's just
agree
human
with
nature.
that. But I love how you're going deep. There's a lot of depth into your programs, into your approach with clients. That's very, very valuable. So what can I expect if I go to and I participate in one of your training conferences? What am I going to be able to take away from? How will I learn from it?
Well, the one thing you can expect is hopefully to hear more of you and the other peers in that class and that keynote talking just as much as you're hearing me. I strongly believe in a very interactive and experiential training environment.
That's the best.
It is, and that's no one likes to be lectured. I mean, think back to college or high school. That was never fun. And I find that the more interactive I can make it, so it gets some good conversations going, get some good brainstorming going, using your peers to bounce ideas off of and resolve your problems, but also using the experience of the room. I mean, really, it's not unusual for the people in my rooms to have 10, 20, 30 years of leadership experience. Why would I not place a lot of value on that and have everyone contribute to the outcomes of that class?
Yes.
So yeah, highly experiential, highly interactive, lots of activities. I try to do at
tell me
least
about some of those.
You know, my rule of thumb when I'm designing a training class is I try to put in one sort of question and answer quick thing every 10 minutes and one major activity that takes, 5 minutes to an hour every 20 to 30 minutes. So you're never just hearing straight Courtney talk at you, Courtney talk at you, Courtney talk at you some more.
Love it.
Right?
Love it. I'm participating
You are
in things.
participating
I've got
fully.
activities.
We're up, we're moving around the room, especially important for my retail people who are on their feet 24/7
They're
and
used
it
to it.
kills them to sit for more than an hour straight. Yes. Yes.
And I
So,
think you
highly
also,
interactive.
I think in a couple of the things that I attended where you were teaching, you also give shout outs. And if there's a question or something comes up, you have people being interactive, going out to Google.
Absolutely.
Looking something out.
Absolutely. Yeah. To me, there's a lot of speakers out there look at the cell phone like it's their enemy. It's not your enemy. Just find a way to use it interactively in your class or in your keynote. I love using some interactive polling software called Poll Everywhere, so shout out to them. I really love using Google. I mean, you might not have the answer. Go Google it. Because first of all, it's a
People
great
are going to do
place.
that anyway.
They're going to do it anyway. And if you're going to be on Facebook or Insta, let's just have you do something interactive that's going to contribute to the class.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So as our final question, what can people expect when they start working with you? What's the process of starting to work with you? How does that happen? What can they expect as they contact you?
So really, in general, for training, whether it's consulting work or for a keynote or for a breakout, whatever it might be, I'm going to do my research first. Like, I'm not the person that's typically going to walk in and just say, this is my one-size-fits-all product. I am someone who wants to come in and talk to your people. I want to find out more about your outcomes that you expect. Like, what's a home run for you? What do you want to see in terms of behaviors changed? Because that's how I know how to start designing into the content I need for your specific business. So lots of preparation, lots of questions along the way. Someone who's easy to work with. I mean, you are looking at someone who worked for corporations who didn't hire people like you and me, Betti, quite frankly. It's
true.
They were internal employees and they were on salary and you did it all. So
It's true.
you created the
remember those
content,
days. Yes.
you delivered the content, you stuffed the binders, you made the copies. So I'm used to doing all that workload on my own, so I'm pretty low maintenance. And the biggest thing I think is I'm just highly flexible to
You
your
are.
needs. Yeah, I'll roll with it.
Yeah,
It's no big deal.
I think we have found you to be incredibly flexible, incredibly competent,
Thank you.
reliable, engaged, knowledgeable, experienced, and with lots of energy.
Thank you.
You really do. You have lots of energy. And the most important thing is you follow up.
I do. Yeah.
I also love that. You want
Yeah.
to know when she has left a training environment, she'll follow up a week,
Yeah.
2 weeks later, just to see how things are going, what hit the mark, what else needs to be done. You
Right.
got a committed partner.
And as much
That's
as I
what you are.
can, I build those things into what I'm offering too. So I put together packages recently that we're going to have Zoom calls. You have the training in, say, January, the Zoom calls in February. We're going to talk about what you've been doing, what you haven't been doing. Let's
Yes.
get back on that. I like to give my managers, like, let's say you're the manager, you send me to a training class. I'm going to come back with a guide for you to help hold me accountable because you probably didn't get the luxury of going to that same class. That doesn't mean we can't update you on some
Right.
things to look for.
It's a good idea.
Right?
Good idea.
Because otherwise, when we know how training is, you
Yes.
get real excited when you're there, and then it just sinks into the
Sinks in.
ground, and you never
can't
see
let
it
that.
again.
And I love that you're doing the follow up with the manager and everything
Yeah,
else. I
for
love it.
sure.
Okay, you have a book.
I do
so
have a book.
tell me about your book, and let our audience know what's in it and how they can get it. So
Okay.
share your genius.
So the book is called Share Your Genius, 35 Tips that you create training that transforms. And, I really wrote this book for people like myself really not people like myself, people like you and me know Betti in NSA, people who have a great area of expertise and want to share that with the world, but they're not completely sure how to put that in a training workshop format or maybe an e-learning format. Because we all know it's not just about the keynote. If you really want your ideas to stick, you got to take it a lot deeper. So it's really meant for that in mind, and it's meant for people who don't have time to take an online instructional design course, or maybe they don't have the money to find someone to go pay it to do it for them, right?
Exactly.
So this is designed to be a really quick read, just walk you through every step in the process, give you about 2 minutes worth of input so you can get started. But it's also great for people who are just in HR, because there's lots of HR generalists out there who are not trainers per se. But guess what? They're being asked to create training and deliver it too.
It's like, where do I go? Where do I
go? Who do
Where's
I hire?
the book?
Oh, that's right. We have no budget. I can't hire anyone. Well, this book will help you with that. And it's available on Amazon.
I love it. I was about to ask, how do our audience
Everything's
find
on
it?
Amazon.
It's on Amazon. There you go.
Everything's there.
Now, tell people how they can get in contact with you. Your email?
Yes. So my website actually is CourtneyRamseySpeaks.com, and my email is just an extension of that. So Courtney at CourtneyRamseySpeaks.com.
And your phone number, please.
Yes, call me. If you like the phone, call me. 469-438-8844.
You just made a comment. If you like the phone. Isn't it interesting dealing with all the different generations out there, what they want, what they're used to, and everything else?
Yes,
and you
it
have
is.
to really be very accommodating for that in training, don't you?
You do. And sometimes you are in a class and you realize things aren't sticking and you're kind of getting the blank stares. You have to flex, you got to spin, and you got to just do it differently. And to your point, that's kind of why I always say, if we're going to start with the training class, let's start with communication styles, because it really all comes down to flexing to the
That's so
person's
true.
needs.
Right. And you've got 4 different generations out there. And you've
Yeah,
got
soon to be
4
5.
different people.
Maybe.
People change their learning abilities depending upon their generation and how they intake information. So I love that. I love that.
It's true. That's my cell phone. So if you want to text me, that's fine too.
Okay, so what was that number again?
469-438-8844.
Okay. And Courtney, if you want to leave our audience with some great words of wisdom for them to take away from this podcast today, what would those words be? Tell me what those are.
You know what I'm going to say, Betti, right? I'd have to say quit hitting snooze. Absolutely.
Get rid of the snooze.
And just in whatever aspect, most of the time when I say quit hitting snooze, people are, something comes to mind, right? There's something like, oh yeah, she's talking to me on this thing. You know what it is you have to do. Now, when it comes to engaging and retaining your talent at work, know that even though there are different generations in the workplace and we are different to a degree, still at our heart, at our central core, we all want the same things. We all want to feel like our manager believes in us and will partner with us.
Yes.
We want them to invest in our future and believe that we have the ability to move up. We want, someone who is going to help us work towards the greater good and contribute to something bigger. So find out what that thing is for your employees, because that's the stuff you can't snooze on with them. You've got to find out what makes them tick, what's important to them, do it as a leader, and that's how you're going to get them more productive, higher engaged, and they're going to stay around. They're going to be retained.
I love it. Okay, I'm going to go home, and with a nice big hammer, I'm going to hit my snooze button.
Oh, you know what?
Yes.
That would make me so happy. If you could videotape that for me, that would be great.
Videotape it. Well, I've gotten in a little bit of habit of saying, okay, Alexa, wake me up at, whatever, and then 5 more minutes. Give me a second wake-up call. Give me a third wake-up call.
Oh, you have
That's a bad little habit.
Yeah,
so
the backups.
I've got to get out of that habit, and this is a great example of that.
Yeah.
Just stop postponing it. Stop procrastinating. Hit that snooze button and get with it.
Got to get with it. Put your feet on the floor. Move.
It's been so fun to have you as my guest today.
Thank you, Betti.
Thank you.
It was a
Thank
good
you
time.
so much. And thank you, our audience, for tuning in and listening to National Speakers Association Power Up. And that's what I want you to do today. Hit the snooze. Forget the snooze.
That's
and
right.
Power up to be better, to be faster, to be stronger. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day. Great job.
Thanks for listening to Power Up with NSA North Texas. To find out more about today's guest or NSA North Texas, visit www.speaker.org. To find out more about Power Up, visit our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/groups/NSA North Texas. And to find out more about Betti, visit www.betticoffeepresents.com.